Okay, so we'll start with a simple 4-point stance then.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to take your hands about shoulder width in front of you, move your centre of gravity so your shoulder girdle is directly over your hands. And this is effectively putting your spine in a supine position, prone position against gravity, but it's not loading it particularly, i.e. this is a fairly short lever, so you shouldn't find there's that much pressure going on within your abdomen to affect your breathing. So your normal nasal breathing practice should be able to be carried out without any undue pressure. So just taking it forwards from here, all we're going to do now is increase the stress in the abdomen. So I want you to try and focus on breathing normally, so normal relaxed nasal breathing. And if you just take your feet so you're resting on the balls of your toes, then very slowly I want you to take your knees up and hover off the floor. And just the increase in that length of bridge from here to here to go all the way through to the toes, and the residual stress that you're now going to find engaged in your legs should mean that you now feel an instant engagement in your abdominal muscles.
Yes.
And your voice has changed already, so I'm presuming you can feel exactly the expulsion of air, the control of the expulsion of air has changed.
Yes.
So that's just a sign of your body, you're in good condition. Your body's now learning already to regulate how to control that inflow and outflow of air under moderate tension. Okay, and if you'd like to rock slowly backwards and forwards from there again, and you should feel...
I'm just going to have a rest then.
Yeah, you can have a rest in a moment. I know you can cope with this. And you should feel from there, again, as you rock forward, there is that sense of just a fraction more bite going on to help draw you back. So nicely neutral here. Nothing incredibly tense at this stage, just finding neutral, then placing the toes and raising the knees. Okay, from that position, find your balance, and I'd like you to lift and slowly step forwards at the same time with one arm and the opposing leg. So if you choose your left arm to go forwards, you step forwards with your right leg, and I want the step to be no more than a few inches. Good. And again with the opposing chain.
So come back or go forward?
Go forwards, please. Good. And another step. And now try and keep this as still as you can. Another step. And relax. And you should have found the moment that two of those limbs were released from the ground, there was a massive increase in stress across the standing limbs. So as we discussed about the increased sense of pressure along the bridge when we raise the knee, the moment you lose some of the support, you end up with a lot more pressure going through the remaining support. And because it's not now effectively having 4 points, that everything's balanced in a nice comfortable position around your centre of gravity, you've now got to balance the fact that you're on effectively one line of support rather than a nice square kind of, or rectangular kind of support system. And this requires a lot more activity generally, as your body's making all these adjustments as you go. So it's not just an increased sense of stress around here or loading that's going to restrict the movement of your diaphragm up and down, and therefore you're going to have to calibrate accordingly. It's going to be a variable one that as your body then moves and it's trying to balance, all these other muscles that are trying to keep you stable and still, or at least in a position where you're not falling off those two limbs, are increasing and decreasing their tension fluidly and almost subconsciously in some form, as you don't have to think too much about balance. It happens or it doesn't happen. You're having to calibrate your breath according to that as well. So there's constant fluctuations in pressure, which means that breathing with a very calm, easy rhythm whilst doing a sustained bear crawl might be something that you consider for someone who is of a very advanced or aspiring to a very advanced level. If the goal was to breathe easy, I might start with a simple test of, from that position, just gently shift and raise two limbs.
Right.
And then gently shift across and raise two limbs again. And then repeat that up until the point that breath becomes difficult, or at least maintaining some form of rhythm, even rhythm becomes difficult.
Yes.
And then once they're familiar with or at least familiar with the pressures and what they need to accomplish this, then I might start getting them travelling, where the balance becomes more of an issue. Again, if you can't stabilise the pelvis and that tension and length is constantly changing, yes, it's very difficult to control your breathing, because your diaphragm's pushing and retracting against a changing and uneven pressure, an uncontrolled uneven pressure.
Yeah. So actually, this position here would be a good one to start just normal, easy breathing.
Yes, absolutely. Can you keep a controlled, relaxed rhythm on your breathing whilst sustaining pressure through here?
But I'm not deliberately pulling in or squeezing or tightening.
No, not at this stage. Having an awareness of the strength that you need for neutral first.
Yeah.
And then obviously we can change the dynamics of the movement if you want to experience more stress. So we can, move around into things like shifting into a side plank or, walking your hands around. Well, as soon as you destabilize one of these points, as we talked about with the bear crawl, the pressure around your abdomen changes quite dramatically. But at the moment, contract what you need to contract to keep it stable, and then breathe around that.
Then I don't have to do any work.
No, this is about as relaxed as it gets. Lying on your back is pretty much as easy for breathing as it gets. Also the fact that you're now supine means that your vascular system doesn't even have to push against gravity.
No.
So keeping the essential organs in the thorax and your brain fed with oxygen, it's really, really easy from this position.
So all I'm doing when I tip myself up the other way is putting different stress on the body.
Exactly.
But this has to engage, but the diaphragm still works the same as it does here.
Diaphragm still works the same as it does there. It's just it has to cope with other stuff interfering.
Again, previously, and I've seen it with a lot of clients, is if you think of, I've got a brace here, they pull the diaphragm up, so then you're breathing up here
stiffly from the chest.
Yeah, and again with running, I found that a lot with running, because then it starts to tighten all the thoracic ribs and everything up here, and everything blocks there. Sorry, back to your shoulders.
So back to the shoulders. Yeah. So again, engaging here, and you can see here the shoulders, they're not being drawn up towards the ears, so that's good. There's a sense of activity, but it's not rigid here, so I can tell that they're switched on, but they're not over recruiting to replace other stuff. And the slight separation of the shoulder blades here is fine, so you can see that the winging of the scapula is not winging up here and separating from the ribs, it's sliding around the ribs. That would be a suggestion that they're not really stabilizing maybe from the serratus anterior, whilst in this position they seem to be fairly close to the ribs, and the AC line is coming slightly round towards the ground in order to support the shoulder joint itself. And you should probably, I'm guessing, feel fairly secure in that position. Wouldn't want to hold it for hours, but it's not a position which you're suddenly going to collapse with.
What did I do then? 4?
4.
And then 1 or 2? Should we try 1 or 2 first? Breath hold.
Breath holds?
Yeah.
Let's try 2. Okay.
And then we'll see.
Okay.
Might not go down, might go down a bit.
Okay.
So I'm breathing normally.
Breathe normally. And just watch your head doesn't drift forwards with the press up. And holding now, yep. Good. Keep it slow. Good. It's thinking. Good. 83.
83.
Coming up. 90. It's 95. So just topping up again. And just about there now, 97. 98. So I'm going to suggest, why don't we keep it inconsistent with the other test that we did earlier, and do 4 slow 202 tempo, but no pause on the squats, with your continuous, very, very relaxed breathing, unhurried. And then when we've done those 4, you can hold on the exhale and do slow 2 more.
Okay, let's have a go.
So. Good. So, and watch this left knee doesn't track in. So let the space open up. Hey, there we go. Nice little crack. Nice and smooth. That's better. And exhale and hold. Slow, slow, slow. Slow. Good. $72.
Just going to show that to the camera. Wow, that dropped.
Yeah, so that's, and as I said, that's because there's, yeah, we're coming up nicely. And your heart rate's gone up, you see. Yep, 89, 90, 92. Yep, coming up nicely. So recovering well.
And the other thing to watch is the heart rate going down.
Yes,
as well,
indeed, yeah.
So it's not going to go down straight away. But.
So as I said, there's a lot of muscles working there. So although you might not feel the demand immediately, you are using that oxygen. That oxygen debt is being built. And when you're holding your breath, or certainly holding your breath after exhaling, there's very little coming through the system. So you're going quite sharply into debt at that stage.
So that's the great thing about that exercise when it's done efficiently. And is that you are using every muscle basically, aren't you?
Yes, a good squat will use a lot of muscles, as would a good deadlift. Yep, you're clear.
Brilliant. Thank you.
No worries.